Hello everyone. So my Grandpa Bob was a man of the Everett community, and his family came over to Everett on a sailing boat in 1892 from England, and he wasn't born yet, and they started a paint business called Goldfinch Brothers Paint. And my grandpa was born in 1918, and in the 30s he ended up taking over the paint business. But before that, he was in school in Everett, and he actually ended up not finishing high school and going to work for the railroad. And then once they needed him at the paint store, he ended up working at the paint shop, and that was his career. And so as he worked there, he started to buy and sell property around the Snohomish County area, and he was doing really well with that. And he owned a car dealership at one point. He owned a laundromat. He owned, and then he owned his paint shop. And so one year he decided he married my grandma, and one of their goals was to go and live in California at some part of their life. And so after my great-grandpa had my grandma and her sister, in 1960 he bought a piece of land in Machias, Snohomish area, and his dream was to make like a campground for RVs and tent sites and for families to come. And it was a really cool piece of property. It had a river running through, and there was property on one side and the other side. But in order to make it what it was, he needed to build a bridge so cars could get over to the other side, and it was going to be called Pilchuck Paradise. And in order for him to build a bridge that could hold cars, he needed to get a permit from the state capitol. So he decided to go down and see the governor, and he went down and he spoke with Al Rossellini, who was the governor at the time, and he was actually good friends with him, and he came back with permits to build this really big, beautiful bridge. And so once the bridge was built, he was ready to have people come and start staying, and it'd be this fun place for everyone to go. But with Mother Nature involved, the river took a turn, and so instead of going under the bridge like he originally planned, it turned and started to go straight around the bridge. So the bridge really was worthless now, and so was the piece of property, because he couldn't really have people coming and staying on a campground when the river's changing courses all over the place. So after he had done really well for himself buying and selling properties, he bought this piece, and it failed, and it wasn't doing him any good. So this was my grandma's chance to say, I think we should move to California. I'm done with the Pacific Northwest. And my grandpa agreed, so they packed up, and in early 1960s moved down to Newport Beach, where they started doing the same thing. They would buy and sell property. They bought a motel and started to run that, which the motel is still there to this day. And they enjoyed the sun and had a beautiful home down there. And once my grandma passed and my grandpa started getting a little bit older, he decided to move back to Washington to be with his family. And even though he was getting too old to buy property and fix up houses and sell property, he decided to start buying cars, and he would do the exact same thing with cars. And I can remember that when he was in his 80s, and even when he was 90, he was going through cars like no one's business. And then he died in 2008, right when the stock market crashed, which was probably a good thing, because I don't think he could have seen the market go down the way it did. And he died a successful, happy 90-year-old in his chair with his stock book. And that's the story of my great-grandpa Bob. The end.